everyone, my name is Josh and Swim School Industry Musings, and today I'm going to be doing a video on the third episode of Dead Ringers, starring Rachel Weisz and based on the film, and the 1988 film of the same name by David Cronenberg. Now this particular episode is essentially focused on the Mantle twins have gone up in the world. In the previous episode, they went to a party that the Parkers were hosting at their home, and in that particular episode, they tried to pitch the idea of a birthing centre to Rebecca. Rebecca wasn't fully in, but due to a series of circumstances and due to a family game, fun game that goes wrong, Beverly just basically loses her mind and she starts to refuse outright the offer that Rebecca has granted them. And then, of course, through a series of talks and through a series of discussions that the three women have had, they have decided to basically go to the practice, open up the practice, but if they refuse, she doesn't want to see their faces again. But in this episode, that they accept the offer and they open the clinic officially, the Mantle Park Clinic. And here they specialise in the birthing of infants and making of women fertile, and also developing a process which could help reverse the menopause by 20 years. So there's a lot of things that the Mantle twins have to undergo in this first trial alone, but they're able to take to it like a duck to water. They're able to handle themselves. They conduct themselves with absolute professionalism, and they are absolutely dedicated, especially Beverly, who really sees the potential in this particular practice going well. And of course, everyone's on board, including Rebecca's sister. And I really do like the fact that these characters are very well fleshed out in terms of they could be real people. They could be people that you meet either on special, forums or special sites like Twitter and things like that. You could meet these characters. They could do a poll on these characters, like, are the Parkers, is Rebecca Parker an absolute monster? Is Parker the example of toxic entitled feminism kind of thing? There's all sorts of things that make you feel that, oh yeah, this person could very easily be cancelled for saying something kind of thing. She has that kind of presence to her. And she definitely is one of those characters that I feel could very easily go on my most unlikable characters in the world list, because honestly, she's dreadful. Her and Cersei from Game of Thrones could definitely start a book club, because I feel like they'd have so much to discuss, because they're just total monsters. But yeah, I really do think that the inclusion of this character does make it really interesting, and it does really kind of create a wedge between the two twins, Beverly and Eliot. And I really am looking forward to seeing where that particular storyline goes, if they decide to develop it more. So in the last episode, while they were out trying to pitch their practice, their housekeeper, Greta, who is an Asian woman, decides to collect samples of the Mantle twins, like bloody tissues and various other things, and putting them into plastic bags. And we don't really know why she's doing that, who she's doing this for, why she's doing this. And it really doesn't make a lot of sense. And you're kind of thinking to yourself, where is this going? Is this turning into a thriller, or is this turning into a, conspiracy thriller kind of thing? What's going on here? Is she being hired by Rebecca Parker? What is Greta's main end game with this? But then we see that she has basically taken a tape that of an answering machine message from the Mantle twins' mother, who wants to see them, and she's taken the tape and she's basically taken the recording and kept it for herself. What's all this going towards? And in this particular episode as well, we focus on Genevieve and Beverly's relationship and how they basically are trying to take their relationship to a next level. They're now planning on moving out of the main house, or moving out of the apartment. Beverly's planning on moving out of the apartment with Eliot, and she's now going to move in with Genevieve. And this basically takes its toll on Eliot, who reacts the way you'd expect her to react. She's been hinting for a while that she's basically a few flavours of crazy, and the fact that she basically reacts to this by essentially eating herself silly on cheeseburgers, sandwiches, and various other things, goes to show that she basically is going through a very emotionally immature phase. She's one of those characters who is very dedicated, and she's very coy and very sharp and very intelligent. But she also has, and of course, the fact that she was born 5 minutes before Beverly goes to show that, yeah, she may be mature technically on an age level, but in terms of behaviour and how she responds to things, she doesn't take things very well, and she can often, just respond to bad news or trauma with simply, letting her hair down and going out to have a drink, having a nice, um, get together with a random stranger, and it ending up, her having a severe hangover and having to push the guy out of the door before you can say Bob's your uncle. So yeah, she isn't really in a very good place. She's trying to deal with the separation of her and Beverly, and it's actually quite interesting that Eliot is the one who goes through the downward spiral this time round, whereas in the original it's actually Beverly who is the one who actually is prone to succumbing to substance abuse and the codependency of trying to create his own life without Eliot. And it's Eliot who has his life together. He has the partner, he has the girlfriend, he has everything he ever wanted. But of course, it's his love for his brother that brings him down. And it's one of those things that I actually really kind of respect this change, and I love how these two storylines kind of converge throughout the episode. And it's going to get deeper into more murkier territory as we go deeper into the series. As we get to episode 5, 6, 4, 5, and 6, we'll start to see more similarities between the idea of motherhood and what it means to essentially give this responsibility of being a mother to women. It essentially is trying to create kind of like this archetypal myth for what it means to be a woman in society today, and what kind of expectations are you expected to have, how do you carry yourself, how do you adjust and deal with all sorts of different complications and all sorts of different other things. But what this episode focuses on is Eliot's emotional state and how she basically just isn't coping with the separation. She's going out and having sex with strangers, she's going out drinking, she constantly is taking drugs. So she takes substance abuse drugs, and she basically takes them on the fly when people aren't looking, or when she's in a party setting, she basically does all sorts of different drugs to kind of highlight that she is going off the rails, and she's calling out for help. Essentially, she wants to find answers, she wants to find a certain sense of validation, of catharsis to a certain extent, but no one seems to be giving it to her because she lives in a world where sometimes things aren't as clear cut as you might think. And I really do like that. I like the fact that she never really has a full answer for everything. I like the fact that she is quite simply a handful, to say the least. I mean, she literally is one of those characters that if you were to be invited to a family reunion, you wouldn't want to bring her along because she might, say something that's actually quite rude or something. So she is a character that really does feel like she says things with no filter. She doesn't have any kind of filter on her when she speaks. She's one of those characters who will quite happily do whatever the hell she wants, and she doesn't care how people react. But this particular episode is interesting because the character really does go through a lot. She goes through trying to adjust to her new role at the clinic, being co-owner and co-partner of the clinic, but then she also has to try to adjust to her relationship, her separation from Beverly. She even has a phone call where she's like, "Oh, hi Beverly, how are you? Like, what are you doing now? Are you, still with that actress? Are you, what's the deal with the baby? Like, are you still doing that?" And Beverly goes, "Well, I don't want to have the baby anymore." And she goes, "Why? We were trying for ages." But Beverly doesn't want to have it, and she wants to move in with Genevieve. So you really do get this impression that Beverly, without Eliot, is a much better person because she feels like she has her life together, she has her health, she has everything. And then when Beverly comes back into her life, it's almost like the anchor that's bringing her down. And we really do get a lot of insight into their relationship. But little do we know that the Mantle twins are actually keeping a secret from Genevieve, and it was actually the case that it was actually Eliot who had begun the first move to basically ask Genevieve out, and it was only through it was only through that one encounter, but this entire encounter means a lot. The fact that their entire relationship existing is because of someone else really is one of the darker elements of the original film. The idea that these twins could swap places and share lovers was one of the key elements of what made the original film so creepy. But what really makes this particular show so interesting is they do take their time building up to that really gut-wrenching reveal where Rachel Weisz as Beverly basically just says, well, it was me the whole time that was dating you and no one else. And that really kind of, goes to show that comes into play much later on in the very following episode, in fact. But I really do like the way Eliot is handled. I feel like she's written like a character who is... She feels like she wouldn't be out of place in the early seasons of Grey's Anatomy. The fact that she is this character who is so competitive, but she is in the medical profession, and she does, treat the act of saving someone's life like it's something that you should be, it kind of feels like an adrenaline rush. That's something that really is quite interesting, and tons of films, tons of stories have definitely played with this idea before. But I feel like what Dead Ringers does is it really kind of shines a light on the very complicated relationship between twins, and of course the Mantle twins, of course, is at the heart of this. But also it really does kind of just show that Eliot really has no agency, or she feels like she has no agency outside of being with Beverly. And I think that really does add so much character to it. And this comes in the form of a tramp by the name of Agnes. Well, she's a homeless person. I shouldn't use the word tramp, but yes, yeah, she's homeless, and her name's Agnes, and she comes into the house after Eliot, while she's having one of her parties at their apartment. She basically starts throwing stuff out the window, and she ends up throwing a plant pot out there, which nearly kills Agnes. So she goes up to the apartment, and she just decides to break all her stuff, like the photo frame of her father, various different things that she has in the house. And then they decide to bond in their drug-fueled state over, the state of their lives. Like Eliot says, basically, that your life is pitying, how are you not depressed? And she goes, well, I've been living on the street for ages, no one really cares about me. And she goes, why are you depressed? And she goes, oh, well, my sister, abandoned me. She went to live off with someone else, went off to live with her girlfriend, and she's basically left me here. And I've been, trying to get off on bad drugs and things like that. And Agnes basically goads her into thinking that she basically has no real value, she's disappearing, she's vanishing, she's lost her agency. So basically she's enabling her doubts. And one of the more interesting things that the show plays with here is they play with the idea that the homeless person could potentially be not real. And I really do like that, because it really does add so much to the idea that she basically is creating in her moment of artificial pleasure and ecstasy this feeling of, oh, she just needs someone to talk to, someone who is lower than she is, and try to, get some validation from her. But in reality, she's basically just channeling that dark side of herself, that part of herself that says, you're nothing without Beverly. She's having a life. She's, going to have a good old time with her girlfriend, but you're basically just here, and you're vanishing, you're disappearing, your life has no value anymore. And this basically causes her to push her off the building. But there's no impact. You don't hear any impact on the ground. You don't hear anything. And when she basically goes to the place where she might have fallen, she's just vanished, or she's not there. And that really adds weight to the entire story, that, oh, is this entire quote-unquote murder in fact real, or was it all inside Eliot's head? Because there was an instance when Agnes comes into the apartment where she starts breaking things, and then she picks up the photo of Eliot and Beverly's parents, and she basically kisses the photo frame before throwing it down. And I thought, why would a stranger kiss the photo frame of someone else's parents and then basically just throw it on the ground, if it wasn't Eliot secretly doing that for the benefit of this, confused group of people, this confused crowd of people that she's invited to her apartment? So that was a very weird sequence, and I kind of found myself thinking, oh, that actually does make sense, that she wasn't very real. Like, oh, is she just crazy? Is she basically just invented this homeless person, or used this homeless person as a extension of this particular outburst that she's got. And I think that's one of the things that I really do like about this episode is it really does talk about that kind of idea that when you're alone and you're this down and you're this depressed, do you end up, snapping and create these manifestations of your guilt in the form of something else? It really does explore psychologically very, very well what's going on inside Eliot's head. And I love the fact that the music is very well chosen. A song by Gree is playing in the background when she's taking drugs in her room. There's so many great songs in this particular version. The song Super Freak plays at the very end when Beverly returns to Eliot at the very end of the episode after she gives her a call. And it's left up in the air as to whether or not the homeless person is in fact real. Agnes is actually real. And I just want to say I used the word tramp earlier, and I do apologise if I end up, offending people. But that was just a slip of the tongue and a mistake. But yeah, this homeless person, she could be real or she couldn't be real. But I actually think this episode is very good. It really does a good job of exploring the relationship between the two twins, but it mostly focuses on Eliot's downward spiral, and I thought it was a really good episode. So let me know what you thought of this episode down in the comments. I'd really love to know your thoughts on this series as a whole. And if you like this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. And that's all for now. I've been Joshua from School and Interesting Musings, and I hope you're all having a very good day. Take care. Bye-bye for now.